Kentucky, what we talked about was just trying to share the ball better, playing the right way. I think we really hit Trey Clark hard. I thought he really did a really good job of, really attacking the basket but making the right play.
So you like the way these guys responded after that game?
Yeah, I mean, they played South Carolina right down to the last possession, so we were a little nervous, and we were a little bit nervous about their full court pressure because we really haven't seen much of it other than when we play against each other. So we did a good job with that. Like, we're still like a search and discover. We're still in search and discover mode, like trying to figure out the right combinations because we have a lot of guys. So that's probably the hardest thing for me.
The decision-making at Kentucky, I know when you guys went dry was something that was being discussed, but how much did you like? You had 21 assists against 11 turnovers, and generally it seemed like there were a lot more positives tonight. Just how much did you like the avoiding repeating the big mistake tonight?
Well, they chose to press, which opened them up, which allowed us to get assists. But it's hard because we can shoot the ball at multiple spots. So, like, if you can shoot the ball at multiple spots and people pressure you, you can make them pay the price. And, we got some good, valuable experience for some of our young guys, which is key for us. We came into the game a little banged up with Joe Reese has a hip pointer. RJ had a little foot issue, so we didn't know, like, who could play. And then we, obviously we got a little limitation on Rotroff. But Rotroff's played like, even last year before he got hurt, he's been playing at a super high level, like rebounding the ball at a crazy clip. So he's really turned into a pretty good player.
Keith, in the second half, you decided not to bring Q out with the rest of the starters. Was that just based on maybe something you were talking about in the first half, just sending a message just to find some positivity, build plays together?
I don't think it was so much him. Like, I didn't like a couple of his plays in the first half, but I don't like a lot of plays. It was more like trying to get Tevin ready to play. We need to get him out there so he can get his sea legs. You can see he's a really good shooter, and you'd never know it because he's wobbly legged. So it's more just trying to push him. And then, eventually we'll play Q and Matoush and those guys less at the point because Kareem's played at a high level. So those two will kind of, split it up with obviously Tevin getting more than Kareem, but Kareem's a really good substitute right now. He's going to be a really good player. He's the leader of the group. He plays hard. He's learning. He's a winner. And so, like, he's hard to keep out of there because he doesn't do anything spectacular, but he doesn't hurt you at all. So I'm really happy with where he's at.
Coach, speaking of freshman, David Dixon was the guy you brought off the bench first and placed with Joe Reese, and he played extended minutes, especially in the second half. What about his game and his development early on have you liked and been able to give him more playing time?
He's super talented. He's just a work in progress. So just emotionally and mentally, we have to get him more, tuned in. But athletically, he's more athletic than all of them. Andy could shoot the ball, although you couldn't tell tonight at the free throw line. He was shooting bottle rockets up there. But he's capable of shooting the ball from the perimeter as well. He had a hard time physically, I thought, keeping guys off the glass, which he has to get better at. But he's a super talented guy. Both him and Chavi. Chavi Barre is another talented guy. So we just got to get him back healthy.
You talk about some of the stuff that's afflicting your front court. How much better do you sleep this year compared to last, knowing you have all the depth, so that someone like Reese goes out early, you can just put in Dave Dixon and still produce?
It's a great point. Like, we came in banged up in a couple spots, and we still had a lot of guys. That helps you. Like Trey Williams played 12 minutes. He was playing 33 minutes a game last year at the 5 spot. So our margin of error is 100 times better than it was. Like, we're gonna find out. We still have a lot of development just mentally, but like Colgate will be a tough game, but we're gonna end up being a pretty good team, I think, before it's over. I'd be surprised if we weren't. We have to keep developing because we have so many new guys.
You look at the minutes so far being fairly spread out. Is that something that that you would like to do when it comes to being able to play 10, 11, 12 guys, or is there going to come a point where the rotation's going to have to shorten and there's going to be a clear hierarchy when it comes to who's getting the 25, 30 minutes?
So most of the good teams in this league play about 8 guys, right? So that's why we're trying to full court pressure more and run more so that we can play more guys, so that we don't have a lot of unhappy people. But that's why the last 6 minutes of the game may seem unimportant to most people, but it's important to me because we have Matoush out there, we have Kareem out there, we have Quincy McGriff out there, we have Dixon out there. So like they're earning their minutes during that time, and if they don't play well, then their minutes are affected. You know, so it's a great question. I would assume that instead of playing 12, I think we played 12 tonight. I don't see us playing more than
13.
Yeah, I mean, not counting, you know. I would assume that it'll get cut back a little bit and it'll just be based on who's playing well and who isn't. You know, it's simple as that, really. But the good thing is if we get an injury or two, we can withstand it. There's a couple spots we can't. Like, we really don't want to have the injury to Brewer. That's a tough spot for us, but we can withstand some other ones.
You look at Day-Day's performances in the first 3 games, super high then super low, and this one doesn't score as much but actually leads the team in assists. Well, what do you think about his game so far, not just tonight, but just sort of overall where sort of he fits?
I think he's just scratching the surface, to be quite honest. Like, he's still a work in progress. He's capable of being a much better player all the way around. And the good thing about it is he's willing to try to work on the things he's not very good at, or he's average at, you know. So I think he's one of the better shooters in the league, probably. He can stand there and make. He had a tough time at Kentucky. You know, we just got to keep building on, adversity, handling bad play, because everybody goes through it, but he's trying to get better. So I thought, I laughed at the stat sheet when I saw it. Not to digress, but 5 points, 6 points, 13 points, 14 points, 6 points, 7 points, 6 points, 7 points, 9 points, 4 points, 8 points, 9 points, 2 points, 0 points. It's the craziest 96 I've ever seen in my life, And it takes a special group of guys to accept that, because it's guys like to score. So that's going to be, as we go here, that's going to be the key as to how we react to less minutes, less shots. But we're capable of getting better. We have a lot of work to do, but I think another month or so we could be formidable.
Keith, a little bit out of left field, but Devin did not play tonight. Is the red shirt a possibility for him? And if it is, or if it isn't, what are you looking for to improve on moving forward?
I thought we announced it already.
What would you look for him to?
Did we announce it, Dave? Or it was out there, right?
It's been out there, but officially being asked.
Yeah, right now he's going red shirt, which is in his best interest. And we got a bunch of those old guards. Like, why waste a year? Like Joe Reese, if you look at his, I think. Dave, what he played the first year at ODU? I think he played like 48 minutes, lost the whole year. That's a joke. Like, that's not even fair to the kid. So I don't want to do that to him. We don't know like what can happen a month from now, but even so, like, unless you can guarantee somebody minutes, you don't want to waste that for a young man. I wouldn't want that done to me. So like, he has to work hard, but he has a chance to be a good player. He's going to learn a lot. And everybody learns at a different pace, too. That's the other thing.
Coach Joyce gets to go back to his alma mater on Friday. So far, now that you've got a couple games under your belt, what's been your experience coaching alongside a former player of yours?
Well, it's not different for me because they all played for me. Other than Andy Allison, I don't know. He played at Youngstown State, but all our main guys played for me. So Charles played for me 100 years ago at Eastern Michigan. So it's just good to have Drew there because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him and his family. So he gave me the opportunity to coach them. And, you know, we did so well there that people gave me another opportunity. So I've said it many times. He was the one that made the decision to come to St. B, not Braun and the other guys. He was the leader of the group. So when he made the decision, he resurrected my career. So that's what's fun for me. I've known him since he was 12 years old, and now he's 37. So it's hard to believe. It means I'm old as hell. Right?
Coach, your next opponent, Colgate, offers you a different test. They're very offensive friendly from the backcourt perspective, deliver it with the ball even without Nelly Cummins, should be a contender again in Patriot League. Would there be like sort of a similar defensive style when it comes to using the diamond press, or will there be any changes you'd make just for this?
We're going to try not to make changes. Like I think the more we can get in a groove of it as to how we want to play, you know, it may be a mixture of pressure. It could be full court man, it could be diamond, it could be something else. But I think that's the way we should play. I don't think we're great at it yet, but I think we have capabilities. You know, even if you get one or two spurts out of it, it's worth it. As long as you're not giving up anything at the back end of it. And so if they quick hit you, you have to be able to go into something else. And I've coached that way before. I coached that way at Ashland. I coached that way at St. B. I actually like playing that way. You wouldn't know it from watching my teams over the last 10 years, but it's more fun. It's more fun for the fans. It's more fun for the players. I just like it.
Gotta have the right players, though.
Yeah, I think the one thing we have is we have big guys that can run. You know, even Rotroff runs pretty good. You know, he may not be as quick laterally, but he moves. And then we have good quickness in the backcourt. You know, we do. So, you know, you got to pick and choose it. You know, even the Havoc, right? It's not really Havoc anymore. They don't really bring it all the time like they used to. You know, they just keep the mantra alive, but it's so they pick and choose too. And you know, same thing with playing zone. We didn't play 8 a night, but we played more this year than we have in the 5 years previous. So even an old dog learns a new trick. What else you got? Anything else?
Yeah, I have a question concerning the returning players, like with Easley, Rotroff, and Trey Williams. What have you sensed from their mindset and their how they're sort of treating everything, going from getting 30 to 35 minutes, being a focal point on losing teams, to so far, minus the Kentucky game, sort of looking good so far? Is it a case where you're hoping that more winning will offset losing of the minutes, or is it something that you're mindful so far right now?
You know, that's an unbelievably good question. I mean, it's never easy even when you're winning, to give up something. And young people, they really don't like to give up stuff, right? But, you know, I would say, from my perspective, it's probably been the hardest on Kevin because he's played the least. You know, so that's really hard on him. He's always played. So I feel for him, you know, and we're going to keep working with him to try to get him more minutes. But he has to earn the minutes. But we have to handle him well. You know, we have to keep working with him. Rotroff is he's so used to it that it doesn't even faze him. So, you know, he's rebounding at a clip that's unbelievable. Like, and he played, like I said, he played that way last year. You know, so I don't think it's a fluke. I just think he just found his niche. You know, RJ Gunn, he's used to playing a lot too, right? Doesn't seem to affect him much. And Trey Williams, like, it's got to be hard on him because he's used to playing. I mean, he played every minute at Indiana State almost too. So, but I will say this: after you go through a year like last year, you sure don't want to go through it again. So you do what you have to do. But I think those guys will continue to play more. You know, as we go, it's just hard to tell. Like, it's a hard juggling act, really. Once we moved Trey Williams to the floor, it became a hard juggle. Now, we can play him at the 5 some if we want, which that could be a possibility down the line too, depending on how Dixon develops and how Chabi develops. That could be the next part of it where those guys' minutes could get more because we went that direction. It's hard to know. And then we could push RJ to the 3 spot too, which is another. So let's say one of those 2 wingers or both wingers don't play well, then we could go the other direction there too. Sound like a soccer coach, a winger, huh? Anything else, Zach? You've been quiet tonight, man.
I asked you 3. Come on,
I
Keith.
got your time.
No, just my wardrobe.
Well, I wanted to ask you, just because I know you watch college basketball throughout. Looking at the A10 through the first week, have some interesting results. Don't necessarily want to ask you about where you think you stand, but just sort of, is there anything in the conference, top to bottom, that has surprised you? Sort of who's even looked impressive, better than people expected, besides you guys?
So I'll ask you the question first. You answer it first.
I would say LaSalle, when it comes to we all know Fran Dunphy was going to have a competitive defense. The Drama Twins was going to upgrade that. I think offensively they're fine. Loyola Chicago's hurt, so it's kind of hard to judge them.
How hurt are they?
They don't have Marquise Kennedy.
That's a 6th man of the year last year.
Yeah, so he's out, and Philip Alston was hurt too. So they're sort of going through it. I would say, you look at Rhode Island, I think people had higher expectations for Brian Freeman, who stayed in the conference, but I don't know if he's in the doghouse, but he's coming off the bench, not playing much. So I say Rhode Island.
So they've been a little disappointing to you.
Yeah, they've lost 2 games they should have won. And I think with Archie Miller's name, you're still sort of expected them to sort of have a run.
But that's kind of how he started dating as well, right? Like, kind of took him a little time. Who else? So St. Louis, Dayton clearly look like the front runners, right?
BCU with them.
BCU will be up in there. Richmond, I haven't seen them play, so it's hard for me to judge.
They were in overtime against College of Charleston right now, actually. I could see.
They lost by 2.
So everybody's been pretty high on Richmond overall, right? Like
Yeah,
for the most
they
part.
lost to College of Charleston in overtime.
Am I right, Tristan? Overall, people have been pretty high on Richmond, which is kind of a little bit, like, I know they have really good players and he's a really good coach. It's a little surprising considering how many they lost. Like, when you lose a guy like Jacob Gilliard, that's a hard, I don't care who you get, it's a hard replacement, right? And then you figure all those other old guys they had. Now, they have some good players back as well. So anyway, to answer the question, LaSalle doesn't surprise me at all. You know, between Fran Dunphy and Joe Mihalik, you know, you're talking about 1,000 years of coaching. Now, that doesn't mean anything if you don't have pretty good players. They have 3 good perimeter players in Brantley, Nickelberry, and Brickus.
Yes.
So they got very good experience in the backcourt. The question will be how good they are in the front court to play in the league. But they'll play zone and some things like that as well. So that doesn't really surprise me. George Washington doesn't surprise me. They got pretty good players overall, and he's been around a lot of good players. So he's a first-year coach, but that doesn't really mean much for as long as he's coached.
They lost to Hofstra tonight.
It's not
in the
surprising,
close game,
though.
But Hofstra, as you know.
Yeah, they're pretty
is
good. Rhode Island, not surprising, because I don't know if they have any big people. So, you know, when you lose the big people, they lost. UMass, about what I expected. I haven't really watched a lot of these people. Who did I miss? George Mason. Who'd they lose? Schwartz?
Yeah, the Shorts. They brought back Cooper and
I mean, I think the top 3 are pretty well defined, and then George Mason should be close in there.
Davidson too.
Yeah, Davidson's another one that's I haven't really watched him yet, but I can't quite put my finger on it yet because you lose guys like you know, Lee and Brakovich. That's a lot. Now they got some good, you know, and they're system based, but I can't imagine that like that's going to be easy. I think they're pretty good. I think Loyola, the jump will affect them because they're going to have to play every night in this league. You know, that'll be an interesting dynamic as well. Shaka scrimmaged them, so I talked to Shaka a little bit, so I have some thoughts, but I can't really share those thoughts. It's a good league, man. I mean, anybody can beat anybody every single night, but those top tier teams are pretty well defined.
Do you feel like you match up with them better this year? And obviously, it's early, but you got
Our whole thing's gonna be if we can have the discipline to play, if we have enough discipline to take good shots when it really matters and defend when it really matters against good teams. You know, when we were good in this league, we mauled people at the 4 spot. And we held our own at the 5 spot because Mike Hughes blocked a lot of shots and he could score a little bit in there. And we had a pretty good point guard in Sincere, and Tavian could fling them in pretty good. But we really won because we mauled people inside. And so we're gonna have to develop that part. You saw at the end, I tried to throw it inside a little bit more. And we're gonna have to be able to score in there a little bit otherwise we're playing like everybody else in the league, which I really don't wanna do that. Cause we can't do that, I don't think we're gonna win like that. But I think we can, I don't know, I'd be disappointed if we couldn't hold our own with about everybody in the league. I'm not saying we're gonna win them all, but I think we have enough size, enough strength. We have we got an old backcourt. We've got guys that played in a lot of games. I think when Tevin comes on and really gets his legs underneath him, I think we'll take another jump, because you could see it tonight. He moved the ball, and that stuff becomes contagious. Now, he can't make a shot yet, but he's a really good shooter. He's rubber-legged right now. So I think we'll, it ain't gonna be easy, but I think we're on our way to being able to compete again. I mean, we didn't compete much last year, so. We